So I'm watching Open Bar last week, and the topic of Disney and Bob Iger came up. There's been some reporting that Iger recently told a group of investors that it is important for Disney to be less political going forward. Noted internet personality Paul Chatto chimed in with this question.
And my question to you guys is, what do you think he means by that? What is it that a movie is going? How is a product going to change based on what he just said? What are your thoughts?
That is one heck of a question, Paul, if you don't mind my saying so, because you see, the phrase, we should be less political, isn't so much of a goal as much as it is really just a positive sentiment. Sentiments are a statement of feeling, and when you take a positive one and tie it to a goal, like, I should eat better, or I should go to the gym more, that feeling can trick your brain into thinking that you're making progress toward the goal when you really haven't. You think, yes, I really should do this thing, and then you get up and go on with your day and eat a bag of potato chips. Until you can focus on what success specifically looks like, you're not going to be able to make any progress toward your goal. So it's good that there's an acknowledgement at Disney leadership that they should try to be less political, although at the moment it seems that Iger was speaking more about specific fights they are having with the state of Florida. But if they want to make actual progress, I recommend doing what Paul did and start thinking about the specifics. We should start by first acknowledging the dullest, but possibly most important problem Disney is facing. Like any other company that sinks $100 million or more into individual projects, it's going to be very difficult for the company to change directions in a hurry. Movies and TV shows can spend months or years in production, which costs the company time and money that they can only get back if they make it to the finish line, because nobody pays to see a half-finished movie, and the only other option for getting any of that money back would be to scrap the entire effort and write it off on your taxes, which only returns some of the lost money. It also involves a pretty public admission of failure and the risk of blowback by any potential fans of the property or anyone involved. And believe me, as much as you think these things were silly, there were fans, there were people who wanted to see them, and you don't want to make them angry because they won't come to the next thing that you show them. All in all, it means you are going to be looking at a significant lag time for anything that Disney releases going forward. And that's a problem, because even if Iger started making very loud, very firm public statements today, which he's not, it's going to ring hollow if Disney is standing in the background spending the next 6 to 12 months or longer releasing movies and TV shows that are the exact kind of thing that Iger says they're trying to get away from, particularly if they have to market these projects to audiences. Anything short of scrapping these old projects is going to provide a deeply muddled message, and messaging, both inside and outside of the company, is key here, because it's the first step in making the kind of change that Disney needs. But that's going to be challenging when you're accustomed to talking like a CEO. CEOs have it pretty rough. I know, boo-hoo, they're so powerful and rich and they get to be the boss, but they have a lot of people that they have to answer to. First, they've got the people who work for them, who want to feel confident in what they're doing, and they want to know that their jobs are going to be there tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. They also have a bunch of rivals that think they can do their job better than you, and they're looking for moments of weakness to undermine you or even try to steal your job out from under you. And they know that they can do that because you have a board of directors who answers to the investors, all of whom want to know that you're going to keep making them money. And none of these people want to hear bad news. And so, as the CEO, you get used to communicating, well, let's call it diplomatically. You use a lot of soft language that won't offend or upset anyone or convey a risk of any kind of unpleasantness. And if you absolutely positively need to reference something less than great that's happened, you want to wrap it up in a euphemism. You learn how to be optimistic and very polite, and for example, you might roll out a movie that angers a large number of longtime fans of the franchise that you just spent billions of dollars to acquire, and then you describe it by saying that it divided the fan base, which makes it sound like you've created a Team Edward, Team Jacob kind of dynamic, but in reality, you've just angered a massive chunk of your customers. And while you may keep those stakeholders calm with this kind of language in the short term, what you're doing long term is papering over a significant challenge that needs to be addressed. And honestly, it's not going to get addressed unless someone with the authority takes actions, because fish don't know that they're wet, and the people making terrible Disney content think that they're helping. Oh, I know that they're not helping, and you probably do too, but they think they are. And that's why the kind of mealy-mouthed sentiments and euphemisms are going to wash over them without anyone actually changing their behavior. They're going to hear things like, we need to be less political, or we need to get back to good storytelling, or we should focus on what makes this a great company. And they're going to think, You are absolutely right, Bob. I sure hope all those other people who aren't doing all those nice things you just said are going to start changing their behavior so we can all get back on track. Let me zoom in on this. If these people believed that what they were doing was hurting, they would stop. Unfortunately, they either think the things that they're doing are helping, or they live in too much of a bubble to realize they don't even know that they're doing these things. When you rely on their judgment for what needs to change, you're going to limit yourself to only the most overt parts of the movies and TV shows being corrected. They will know that they should cut out the joke about capitalism being bad, although they don't personally think there's anything wrong with that joke, but they'll miss a dozen other places in the same movie that audiences picked up on and didn't like. This is why you need leadership to step in and call out these specific behaviors that need to change. They're the ones who have the authority to say, basically, look, we're going to do it this way because I'm saying we are. And if you disagree, well, I'm sure with your skill set, you should have no trouble finding a top-notch job in either the hospitality or food service industries. If you really want to change behavior, it's not enough to have a to-do list. You need to have a stop-doing list. And, well, yes, I do have a few thoughts on where you could start. First, stop making characters that are inherently powerful without having to develop the skills or even learn how to control those powers. Stop making movies and TV shows with a character's name in the title, but then shove them to the side so that another, newer, less popular character can take the spotlight. Stop making movies about the writer's thinly veiled issues with their parents. It does sound a bit harsh, don't you think? I mean, it's not the kind of thing you would want to say in polite company, and definitely not in a corporate or business setting. That's the problem. Look, I don't know what's in the hearts or minds of Bob Iger or anyone else at Disney, but I do know that if they have internalized this, if they really do believe that these kinds of changes needed to be made, they are going to have to completely change the way they communicate if they want to correct the course they're on. They can stick to vague hints all they want, but the people working for them aren't going to change behaviors that they don't know are causing problems. Speaking of ways that Disney alienates their customers without anyone seeming to notice, I'm going to talk as a father for a minute. One of the things that you learn by having kids is that they are little walking neurobehavioral sponges. Every minute of every day, their little brains are looking around for signs and signals for how they're supposed to behave. They assume the things they see around them are normal, and thus that's how they should behave. And very quickly, new parents will realize that the things they expose their children to have an immediate impact on how they behave, whether they're seeing real people or images in media. Now, some media influences can be really good for your kids. Miss Rachel is a former teacher turned YouTuber who produces a terrific amount of content aimed at teaching fundamental language skills to young children. My toddlers have taken to her videos, and we immediately saw an improvement in their language skills. Hilda is a beautifully drawn Netflix show for kids based on the graphic novels of Luke Pearson, about a girl and her friends living a modern magical fantasy setting. The stories are slower paced and more thoughtful than most animation aimed at children, and it draws my kids in at every age. They also notice that while the characters are fun and interesting, they sometimes make bad decisions and have to deal with the repercussions. Bluey is, well, you already know about Bluey. I mean, it's the best written show on television right now. But the thing that sticks with my kids are the imaginative games that Bluey and her sister Bingo play all the time. After we started watching the show, my wife and I noticed a change. Our kids won't say, let's go play Bluey, but they did do the kinds of things that they saw Bluey do. They start pretending to be shopkeepers or restaurant owners or work in a coffee shop. But not only that, but they play together with one another in a way way more collaborative than we see from them most of the rest of the time, because that's what they see on the show. It's an obvious dynamic, but one I need to point out because apparently some people at Disney haven't understood this. Kids will take cues from what they see around them, including in media. So as a parent, it's a big part of my job to make sure that they get as much of the good stuff as possible. So with that said, I'd like to add one more item to the list of stop doing for Disney. Stop making selfish children the moral centers of your movies and shows. Subpoint, stop making sensible parents and grandparents the villains of your movies and shows. This is far and away the biggest fish don't know they're wet example I can think of. People wrote these movies. They made outlines, and they wrote a first draft, and then a second, and then they gave it to somebody else who edited it and came back, and there were discussions about character models and casting and recording and editing and filming and on and on and on. And yet, somehow, even with all these people involved, no one appears to have ever spoken up and said, I don't think parents are going to like a movie that completely undermines their authority with the very children we want them to bring to the movie. Over the past few years, across Disney properties, we have seen a teenage activist who mouths off to her father after getting herself arrested, who saved literally half the universe by asking him, "But what have you done recently?" Another teenager lecturing her grandmother about being too stern with some of her family. The same woman who watched her husband run down by men on horses as they fled with their triplets, one of whom would grow up to be the teen's mother. And yet another teenager who decides to lie and deceive both of her parents after she's told she can't go see a boy band perform live because her mother is worried that she might get excited and lose control over her inherited magical powers and possibly hurt other people. By the way, the mom was super right on that last one. Ming actually does lose control of her powers later in the movie, despite being so loudly certain of her ability to control her emotions. And she does, in fact, hurt another child. I mean, look, she leaps off of a roof and tackles him. In my opinion, the only reason she doesn't kill this kid is A, this is a Pixar movie, not incredible, and B, the creators of the movie don't want the mom to be right and so divinely intervene to ensure that the kid only gets a little scuffed up. Do I think Disney is actually corrupting my kids with these movies? No, not really. First, none of my kids have seen Quantumania, even the ones who like the other Marvel movies. The emotional dynamic of Encanto goes right over their heads, they just like it for the music. And they don't watch much of Turning Red, possibly because I have spent a large amount of time and energy getting them to think of it as that movie with the bad girl who has bad things happen because she doesn't do what her mother told her. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty proud of my parenting on that last one, but it does take effort, and I feel like a lot of the people at Disney need to be reacquainted with the value proposition that they've been offering parents for 100 years now, which goes something like this. You can feel comfortable buying our products and showing them to your kids because we only make high-quality, wholesome stuff that won't generate any uncomfortable conversations later. Okay, to be fair, sometimes things are scary, but you know what I'm getting at. I'm supposed to associate the name Disney with totally appropriate for your kids. And more I feel like it's become probably mostly appropriate for your kids, but no, we don't really care if you complain about the parts that you, the parent, feel aren't appropriate. We're just going to do it anyway, so you can take it or leave it. It's enough to make me consider going to all physical media. Because like I said in the beginning, the near future doesn't look great either. Have you seen the trailer for this new movie, Wish? Apparently the king can grant wishes to everyone in the kingdom, which is great, until his daughter finds out that he doesn't grant everyone's wish, but only those he feels won't endanger the kingdom. She thinks this is awful, he snaps at her, and she decides to try and give everyone their wishes. Let's spend 5 seconds as an adult and ask ourselves, is it a good idea to give the power of omnipotent creation to a large group of random people, or do we think it would be better to perhaps exercise some kind of restraint lest things get out of hand? I'm not even talking about someone wishing ill on their neighbor or the like. I just mean in the sense of, oh, I don't know, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. You know, we have a common phrase for this in English, right? Was there no one working on this movie at any stage who pointed this out? I know, it's just the trailer. And yep, it could be good. It could be. Maybe it is. Maybe that's the point of the movie. That's the girl with the big ideals, and she's brought down to reality after she opens the floodgates wide, and there are a slew of unintended consequences for her actions. I'd really like that, but let's be honest, the rest of the trailer isn't pointing in that direction. It looks like stuffy, mean old dad is the villain and the one who will learn the lesson after all, because really isn't life just about listening to your heart and being nice, and good things will definitely follow. So, yeah, Disney is in bad shape, and it's got an uphill climb ahead of it, but let me be a little contrarian here against myself, but all the same. Some people might say it is amazing how quickly Disney has gone off the rails, but let's look at the silver lining. If it happened so quickly, it means that not that long ago, they were still making some great movies. They made movies like Moana, which is based on a legend, culture, characters, and a story that basically no Western audience was familiar with. And guess what? It was a huge commercial and cultural success, and yes, I did let my daughters dress up as Moana for Halloween. Thank you very much. Zootopia mixed the buddy cop genre with some even-handed commentary about bias and prejudice and managed to tie it all up with a positive message of inclusion for everyone, all while telling a story of political corruption in a big city. They also had a great bit about the DMV being staffed by sloths and what an animal nudist colony would look like. Wreck-It Ralph made reference to decades of video game icons while introducing all new characters with relatable problems. They even sucker punched us with a real big boy tears moment of a heroic sacrifice. Tangled created a lush and gorgeous setting with memorable characters, filled with personality, while exploring the ideas of youth and experiencing adult freedom for the first time. And by the way, folks, it's a little thing. If you're going to make the mom the villain, don't have a regular mom be the villain. Make her an actual villain, like a witch who kidnaps a baby and then lies about being her mother so she can steal her magic powers and keep herself eternally young. You know, the kind of thing you'd see in a Disney movie. Even in the past 3 years, we have seen some promising stuff. Andor gave us 12 shockingly mature and thoughtful episodes about the nature of tyranny and the systems needed to sustain it, not to mention a masterclass in how to portray a heist on film, and a great monologue about the sacrifices parents make for their kids. Elemental reimagined the challenges of immigration, the conflict between respecting the old ways of your family and challenges of living in a new place. It is not a perfect movie, but it touches on a lot of topics that other recent films haven't been able to tackle cleverly. And Luca captured the naive optimism of adolescence and the value of friendship and how parents can be mistaken without necessarily being villains. We also got a pretty great pasta recipe out of it. So no, I don't think all is lost. I think there are a lot of talented people who still work at Disney and are still interested in great stories. The problem is that a small number of bad decisions can overwhelm otherwise good ones in a single movie, and in turn a small number of bad movies can overwhelm a larger portfolio of pretty good ones. And Disney has had bad times before. They're celebrating their 100th anniversary, but it's not like they've maintained high levels of success and quality that entire time. They've had ups and downs over the years, good times and less good times. I really do believe there's a lot of good talent there, and if they can figure out how to trim away everything that's distracting those people, well, they'll put themselves in a solid footing for the next 100 years. Good luck.